Hi, boys and girls. Mr. Morse here. And for the last time, our last PowerPoint, but I think probably the most important. Today, we're going to talk about Roman religion. You have three words today: polytheism, monotheism, and Christianity. Polytheism meaning more than one God, monotheism meaning one God, and Christianity, which means the belief that Jesus Christ is your God. So we talked previously when we were discussing geography that Rome started out in the middle between the Etruscans and the Greeks in the peninsula. And from the Etruscans, the Romans believed in thousands and thousands of gods early on, as you can see up here on this timeline. 758 for about 358 years to 400 BC, they believed in the Etruscan gods and other weird gods. Gods of bridges and rocks and trees and streams and doors and baths and kitchens and whatever. They believed in a lot of gods, and they believed that the Roman gods could change personalities, they could appear as people and disappear and so forth. Very crazy, very chaotic. Now, as we talked about, they were invaded by the Etruscans and then later took over the Etruscans. And once the Romans took over the north, as we discussed also in the history section of our PowerPoints, they set their sights on the southern tip, which is the Greeks. When they invaded Greece, they realized something about Greece. They loved the Greek gods. And after they conquered the southern tip and sent the Greeks back over here to Greece, where the Greeks were actually from, actually sent them off, they realized they had these really cool gods. The Greek gods made sense. They had a history. The Greek gods had names, they had things they were gods of. There weren't thousands of them, there were about 100 of them, and they just seemed to kind of make more sense than all the other chaos they believed in before. So the Romans, in a very Roman manner, adopted the Greek gods but changed their name to Roman names. So the Greek goddess Hera, who is the goddess of marriage and chief female god, became Juno, doing the very same thing. Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty for the Greeks, became Venus, all the way down. Zeus, the all powerful god, sky god, for the Greeks, became Jupiter, the Roman sky god and all powerful god. So you get the drift. They adopted all those gods and just changed their name, but believed in all the same things. And all of a sudden, this Greek religion became the state religion of all of Rome for about 700 years, from 400 BC all the way down to zero, and then back up to 312 AD. Well, during this time of this Roman Greek god belief during the Roman Empire, and as you can see from this map, all of this is the Roman Empire. In a place far away from Rome, which would have been here, all the way over here in this area known as Israel, which was a Roman province, was the birth of a baby in the year 1. His name was Jesus. And the reason why it's 1 AD is Christians have gone back and set the calendar as the birth of Jesus as being the first actual year that we move forward. 1 AD. AD means Anno Domini in Latin, which means the year of the Lord. And guess what? We live in the year 2017 AD, in the year of the Lord. So here we are in an area called Judea in Israel, which is occupied and ruled by the Romans at the time. Jesus was born in a town called Bethlehem, a Roman province. He was born to a Jewish family, which was a singular God believing faith. He taught about being the Son of God, which angered many Jewish priests. He was cast out of several places because in the Jewish religion, which the Romans let the Jewish people believe in their one God for 600 years. Let me go back to our map. You see, the Jewish people had lived in this area for 600 years, far before the Romans took over. And the Romans let the Jewish people believe in their one God as long as they paid taxes and they did all the things that they're supposed to do for the Roman Empire. Other than that, go ahead and believe in your God, the Romans said. But the Jewish people believed in their God in certain ways. And when Jesus was born and started claiming that he was the Son of God, they considered this blasphemy. And they were very upset with Jesus. So upset that when he grew up and was 33 years old, the Jewish priests turned him over to the Roman soldiers and a man named Pontius Pilate, a Roman governor of the area, and said, "You need to put him to death or we will rebel against the empire." Well, Pontius Pilate did not want any problems, so he took Jesus and he had him killed in the year 33 AD, Anno Domini, in the year of the Lord. Now, these two other people up here were criminals who were also executed on the same day that Jesus was executed. So here is Jesus being put to death in this painting. And by the way, hanging on a cross was a very Roman way of torturing and killing people. It had nothing to do with just Jesus by himself. They've been doing this for hundreds of years. Jesus dies on his cross. And if you were a Christian, if you were a Catholic or Presbyterian or a Lutheran or Episcopalian or a Methodist or even born again, you believe that Jesus died on this day, and 3 days later, Easter Sunday, he rose again to live again up in heaven. Well, about 30 years after Jesus' death here on earth, if you will, a man named Paul heard about Jesus. He was actually a Jewish person who used to turn the Christians over to the Romans for money. His original Jewish name was Saul. But one day on the way to Damascus to find Christians to turn over to the Roman soldiers, Saul went blind. And as the story goes, he was screaming and yelling, and he could not see until finally light came into his eyes, and he heard a voice say, "Saul, why do you persecute me? I want you to change your name to Paul and act through me and tell the world about my son." At that very moment, Saul became Paul in 60 AD and traveled and went everywhere he could to tell everyone he met about Jesus and that Jesus was the true Son of God and the only God. He spread Christianity further than any of Jesus' friends, even further than Jesus had himself. Paul became a true ambassador of Jesus' name and Christianity, as you can see from his first journey. It all started right here. And he went all the way around in his first journey telling everybody he could about Christianity and Jesus. You see, Paul was a Roman citizen and he could travel all over the empire without anybody stopping him. It's like having a passport to go wherever you wanted in the ancient empire. Second journey, third journey, and finally his last journey where was to Rome, where he was finally put into prison and died in prison. But he told so many people about Christianity and Jesus years after Jesus had actually died. He spread the word throughout the empire more than anybody ever had. Well, at the time that he was doing this, Rome had an emperor named Nero, and Nero was crazy. Now, Nero believed in the Roman Greek gods, but Nero cared more about himself than anybody else. The story goes that Nero actually started a fire to burn down the eastern part of the city because he wanted to build a bigger palace. Now, while he was burning down this eastern part of the city, the people were upset and screaming. Thousands of people died. Hundreds of buildings were on fire. The city burned for weeks. And the people came calling and actually surrounded and cornered Nero and said, "What has happened?" And Nero at that moment blamed the Christians for the fire. Many historians say it was Nero that did it, but he blamed the Christians. Now, the city burned for several weeks, and many people said they could hear music coming from Palatine Hill where Nero was staying. I don't know if he was actually playing this harp, but we do know that it burned for weeks, and we do know that he blamed the Christians for the fire. And because he blamed the Christians, for the next 250 years, the Christians were persecuted by the Romans. Now remember, the Romans believed very adamantly that the Roman Greek gods were their religion. It was their state religion. But slowly but surely, people started listening and believing in Christianity. Part due because of what Paul's work had done, but part because they saw these people being tortured for entertainment. They saw these people being eaten by lions. They saw these people being crucified and murdered for entertainment. And some people, very much up in the stands, not everybody, but a lot of people felt sorry for them. And they thought, if these people are being tortured and killed for a God, maybe their God is real. Because a lot of these Romans were not ready to die for their own Roman Greek God beliefs. But when they saw these people dying for their Jesus and their God, maybe their God was powerful, and maybe there's something more to the story. So, how did all this stop, especially in 312 AD? About 250 years of persecution coming to an end? That has to do with the Roman Emperor Constantine. You see, Constantine became a Christian in 312 AD, and how that happened is amazing. Constantine was born in the eastern part of the Roman Empire, and he became a general and had a large army. At the same time, in the western part, there was a man named Constantius. And I'm going to jump ahead here. Constantius took over the western half of the empire, and Constantine took over the eastern half of the empire with his army. Now, neither one of these two, Maxentius or Constantine, believed in Christianity. They were both very polytheistic and Roman Greek god worshipping. But Constantine needed something, and he was heading into a final battle with Maxentius right here at the heart of Rome. Maxentius had him with more soldiers, he had him outnumbered, and Constantine needed something. So, as the story goes, he went to bed one night, and he awoke and went outside and saw a burning cross in the middle of the night. At that moment, he declared that the Christian God Jesus, was speaking to him and him alone. He dropped to his knees and declared himself a Christian. And then he ordered all of his men to paint this P and this X, as you can see right here, this P and this X, which is Greek for Christ, on their shields. He told them that if they painted Christ on their shields, they would win the battle. After that long, hard day of fighting, Constantine's men did win the battle, and Constantine became the sole emperor of Rome. Now, having done this, he then declared Christ as the new religion throughout the empire. Christianity spread quickly because remember, there were a lot of people who were wondering about Christianity due to all this persecution. And pretty soon, overwhelmingly, like wildfire, Christianity spread throughout the empire quickly. And by the time Constantine died, around the year 350 AD, 90% of the empire was believing and worshiping in Christianity. It's an amazing story, and all of it true. Jesus, still to this day, if you're a Methodist, if you're a Christian, if you're Catholic, if you're Lutheran, if you're Episcopalian, if you're Baptist, you believe in Jesus as your Savior. And all because of Jesus, the Apostle Paul, and of course, Constantine. I hope you guys learned something. Take care. Talk to you soon.